Hi folks, I'm Matt Selic with the 100 Mile Arts Network. Welcome to Art to Heart, the video podcast series where I'll be interviewing artists and artisans from across the Gatineau Hills. In today's video, we meet with Kate Greenland, a banjo player and a banjo builder. Newly minted as a Wakefielder, along with her trusty dog, Mr. B, they make a welcome addition to the fold. Okay, Kate, thank you for having me over at your beautiful home here in the heart of Wakefield Village. And your beautiful dog here, yes. Mr. B.
Mr. B.
So tell us a little bit about how did you end up in Wakefield?
Well, I basically wanted to move to Wakefield after one of the first times I came here as an adult. I was always playing shows at Cafe 270 and sometimes at Black Sheep too. And so it was on my radar forever. As we all know, it's pretty hard to find rentals. So, after some attempts and fails, I ended up moving out to Lac des Loups for a year and a half, which was really great. And then this opportunity came up to purchase this home, and I was super lucky and managed to.
Well, it's a great place for the arts, and we're very lucky to have you. So the banjo.
Yeah.
What was your introduction to the banjo as an instrument?
Well, the banjo has been a pretty major part of my whole life, even though I didn't actually start playing until maybe 4 years ago. So it was a long time coming for me, but my dad has been a banjo player since before I was born. So he played at home, he taught banjo at home. So it's been a major part of my whole life. But yeah, like I said, it was more something on my peripheral, and it took me until my 20s before I actually even started playing music. Both of my parents are musicians, kind of felt like their thing as opposed to mine. But when I finally broke down and decided to start learning, I decided to go towards bluegrass, which is what my parents play. And then eventually I got led into some old time, and then I picked up the banjo from there. Yeah.
Well, but you're not just a banjo player. You got into building banjos.
Yes.
How does somebody get into building banjos?
So what ended up happening was, I started playing the banjo, and I kind of had met a few people actually through a trip down to North Carolina. West Virginia first, and I met some people who were building banjos, and it just kind of seemed attainable, and I don't know why. I guess it was just something inside of me that was you could probably do this. I literally at that point never picked up a tool before other than a hammer and maybe a drill. Hanging pictures in my house and stuff like that. But I've always been really creative. I love to draw. I love to make things. So for some reason, I thought I could do this. I could marry these two things together. And so I took the decision pretty seriously because it was at a point in my life when my music career was slowing down for a moment because I lost my musical partner to the circus. And and so I wanted to make a change, and I was like, this is the perfect moment to do something big. And so I went back to school, and I decided there's no banjo building courses in the area, and at the time I was still living in Outaouais. So I was like, I'll just take something to introduce me to woodworking, and I was able to get into the program at Algonquin for cabinet making and furniture technician. While I was at the college, I was working on my projects for the program, but I also decided to start building banjos there. So I bought myself a couple of books and just went at it on my own. I would ask my teachers, how do you think I would achieve this end result, when I was trying to figure out how to do processes. And so they would help me with that, having zero idea of how to build a banjo either, but we sort of worked on it together, and I was able to build two at college, just with my own sort of attempts. And I don't know, they weren't perfect, but they're playable. So right. I think it was a really good decision to take it so seriously and just immerse myself in it, because now I've been able to learn a lot more.
Right. But no professional tutelage specific to the banjo.
So after college, I found out about a course in North Carolina run by Patrick Hebner from Pisgah Banjos. And so it's a 5-day course, and I went down there and I built a banjo alongside him and some other, amateur banjo builders. And it was I learned so much more about the nuances of what makes a good banjo. And then I was able to just take everything that I could kind of learn on my own and from him. And, you know, I actually got my first commission for a banjo while I was still in that course.
Oh, right on!
Yeah, so.
Well, tell us about that. You're talking about the subtleties of you know, like they go into making a banjo. I mean, on the face of it, you might look at it and say, well, it's just a pot with a, you know, stick on it and there's some strings, but of course there's so much more that goes into it. What are the kind of some of the subtleties that you know?
So one of the big things, which I guess was something I learned about later, but thankfully it didn't actually hinder the first two banjos I made. I had read about it in something called like the neck skew. So like, you know, most instruments, when the two pieces meet, the neck and the body, there's like an angle where it's coming down like the neck to create pressure. And so that's like a neck angle. But then because the 5-string banjo has this string that's halfway up, you have two centers. So the neck doesn't attach to the pot directly at like a 180-degree angle. It's like slightly off to the side to compensate for the center of 4 strings and then the center of 5 strings. So that you're not having the 5th string like fall off the neck, if that makes sense.
So what's the process for you if you're going to make a banjo? Like, I mean, from start to finish, you know, how long does it take? But like, well, you know, what are the kind of some of the steps? Like, what are the, you know, what do you have to tackle that?
It's hard to quantify the exact time because up until now I've always had like other work, so it's hard for me to say like if you were able to work on it full time, you know, how long it would take. But you know, there's you know, things that you can go back and forth from. So like for instance, the rims. Previously I had made block rims, so it's all just a bunch of blocks of wood at, you know, a certain degree angle depending on, you know, how many blocks you want, and then you create this like multi-sided you know, sort of piece. Like I want to say an octagon, but there's usually I made them with 12 pieces, so whatever that would be called. And so you can make a pot like that, or you can do steam bending, and you can steam bend plies. And so when you're getting into something like that, you know, you prep the wood, you create all the plies, you have to steam, you have to bend, you have to create a form, and then there's all this time in between to like allow things to settle, like to allow the wood to settle back down after you steamed it. And of course, many glue ups and things like that. And then of course, then you have to take it to a lathe to really true it up so that it will fit all of the, you know, predetermined hardware that I do not make, but you know, you can get it from different suppliers. And then in that whole time, you can work on, you know, your neck, which is also quite involved. And then like any instrument at the end, there's like a ton of things after you build the actual components that have to be taken care of, fretwork and yeah.
So here's something I've heard instrument builders say. I mean, you invest so much of yourself in an instrument, right? Like it's countless hours of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears and whatever that go into building this thing. And then when it's finally done, if you're building it for someone else, you got to give it away.
Yeah, I haven't had too much of a problem with it yet because the people I've been giving or selling banjos to at this point are friends. So it feels like getting to give someone you really care about a gift. So that's been nice. But I will say, like with some of my inlay pieces, I've been working on jewelry as well as a means of, you know, bridging the gap between banjo commissions. But sometimes I do feel like, oh, I'm just sending this out into the universe and like I'll never see it again. So photographs have been a good friend to me.
I think the last year and a half has obviously been a really challenging time for the arts. You know, musicians can't play shows. There's less demand for, you know, work of all kinds in the arts. So how did that impact you, A, as a musician, but also as somebody who just got into, you know, building banjos?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely as a musician, it made me put everything on pause because we couldn't really do anything. But then, yeah, what I ended up doing was really diving into the inlay part because it was hard to get, I mean, and also, you know, lumber is still going up in price, but it was hard to get materials. I also, that was at the same point that my like living situation was changing. So I lost the workshop that I had before and had yet to actually make the workshop here. So there was going to be no major building for me in those moments, and so it took a while, but I still was able to do, you know, smaller things, and I worked on commissions for other people for their instruments and stuff like that. So that was how I, you know, as we're saying, like, we pivot, and that was how I pivoted, and for me it actually turned out to be really great because I got to really explore like this new art form that I'm still, you know, like learning at, but I was able to really jump leaps and bounds. Yeah.
Well, what's next? What are you looking forward to? What do you want to do?
So this summer, I'm working on like my first big batch of banjos. So previously, I had built 2 simultaneously at the college, but after that, it was just 1 at a time. And so I'm gonna try to do a batch this time of 6, hoping to get through it by the end of the summer. But I'm lucky right now that this is like my main focus, and so. I'm able to really like invest all my time, and I mean we're at home and I get to work from home, so it's pretty great.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants a Cape Greenland banjo,
Yes.
You're taking orders.
Exactly, I am. I have some of these are reserved and some of them are up for grabs.
Right.
So if anyone's dying for a banjo,
Well, you're in a good neighborhood. I mean, your neighbor's a banjo player. So
I've got 2 banjo player neighbors actually, so I feel like we're a per capita.
The universe plopped you right in
yeah,
just
we
the
have
right
like
spot.
the highest concentration of banjo players outside of Appalachia, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, right on.
Yeah.